So, when I say the word home or family, what comes to mind for you? Some of us get a warm feeling in our heart when we hear those words. Others may cringe a bit. It may spur mental images of great throngs of aunts and uncles and cousins gathered in the orbit of a matriarch and a patriarch, generations of relations wearing special t-shirts for a long-planned reunion. Or it could be a reminder of loss and loneliness. Maybe home and family are things you've never been without, and you can't imagine life without them. For more than you might think, home and family are fantasies that only dwell in the realm of imagination and longing. Our Christian year always begins with Advent and Christmas, when we get a glimpse into the people that Jesus first called family. We even set up little statues of them all over the place. Mary and Joseph and the baby. We might even hide the wise men for a few weeks until it's time for them to show up. But it would not have been just the three of them, a cozy little nuclear family, contrary to the popular picture that we paint. In those days, in that part of the world, families were of necessity much more expansive than that. Households were extended networks that provided both sustenance and protection for their relations, which could include both blood relatives and others who were adopted into the family. They shared a craft or a profession. What we know of Jesus' family, by way of Joseph, is that they were in the building trades. There wasn't a ton of lumber in those parts in that time, so they likely weren't exclusively or even predominantly carpenters, per se. They probably built with stone and with other materials. But whatever the particulars were, they did it together. They had to make a living. The family business was a community affair, and this wasn't the only way that they took care of one another either. They also provided protection at a time when a town police force was non-existent, and justice was much more arbitrary and harsh. You had to rely on your extended household. In Greek, it was your oikos. You had to rely on that oikos for provision and for protection. Even the houses, and we know this from archaeological digs in the area, even the houses were built in a protective configuration with multiple nuclear families living together in rooms of homes that were constructed around a courtyard with security and common life in mind. And this is what Jesus would have known in Nazareth, where he grew up. An extended family business in which he and Mary and Joseph and his siblings would have participated as a matter of course. And in return, they counted on both provision and protection. So the events of chapter 4 in Luke are striking. It's the scene, some of you will remember, where Jesus preaches his first sermon in the hometown synagogue. And at first, he impresses everyone. He quotes Isaiah, and he has everybody in awe of his pulpit presence. Hometown boy makes good and all that. Mary was surely bursting with pride, as would have been the rest of his family members and extended family there. But then things take a decided turn for the worse, because Jesus preaches from that Isaiah passage about how God's favor is not preserved just for Israel, just for their people, but he references instances from their collective past where God showed mercy to foreigners and outsiders while Israelites went wanting at home. And the text then describes how Jesus got run out of town. He barely escapes with his life, it tells us. And usually we just leave it at that. After all, it is hard to hear the truth, right? Prophet not welcome in their hometown and all that stuff. Those hick townsfolk there in Nazareth just didn't know what they'd witnessed. So we can give them a mulligan on this one. They didn't know that they had the Messiah right there. But the story gets darker if we know what we know about family in ancient Palestine. Who was supposed to protect Jesus when the town wanted to bury him in a hail of rocks? His family was supposed to protect him. It wasn't just Jesus on trial that day. It was his whole extended family. And they left him to the mob, alone, running for his life. Now, at best, we might give the family credit for maybe distracting the neighbors long enough for Jesus to slip away. But whatever happened, he no longer had a home there with the family he'd known his whole life, with the men he had worked beside, building walls and homes. It sheds a whole new light on that passage later on when Jesus' mom and his siblings come around wanting some of his time, and he says, "Who are my mother and my siblings?" Who indeed? Well, when Jesus gets the heck out of Nazareth, he ends up in Capernaum at Peter and Andrew's mom's house. And we get these verses. Jesus went down to the city of Capernaum in Galilee and taught the people each Sabbath. They were amazed by his teaching because he delivered his message with authority. A man in the synagogue had the spirit of an unclean demon, and he screamed, "Hey, what have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You're the Holy One from God." "Silence," Jesus said, speaking harshly to the demon. "Come out of him." The demon threw the man down before them, then came out of him without harming him. They were all shaken, and they said to each other, "What kind of word is this, that he can command unclean spirits with authority and power, and they leave?" Reports about him spread everywhere in the surrounding region. After leaving the synagogue, Jesus went home with Simon. Simon's mother-in-law was sick with a high fever, and the family asked Jesus to help her. And he bent over and spoke harshly to the fever, and it left her. She got up at once and served them. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen. So from this new home base, a new family began to accumulate around Jesus. It was a family that was locked into Jesus' mission. Feeding people, healing people, freeing people from their demons. It was a new family business that was getting up and running out of a house where Jesus found hospitality extended by people who resonated with his vision for Israel and the world. He would later call receptive people like these people of peace. And all of them rolled on the strength of Peter's mother-in-law's cooking. Capernaum loves Jesus so much that they keep him up all night doing his miraculous thing, and far from running him out of town, they don't want him to ever leave. When Jesus and his peeps get to work, the whole community benefits because people are set free to be the children of God they were created to be. It harkens back to the word that we hear from Jeremiah today. God's people are not supposed to curl up and hide. Jesus isn't joking when he says in another place that they are supposed to be a beacon shining on a hill. The prophet Jeremiah is writing to a bunch of Jews who have been conquered and carted away to a far-off land. They are foreigners, immigrants, resident aliens where they live. And yet, he tells them to buck up and get to work for the welfare of the city in which they find themselves. Fast forward to Western Welcome Week 2025 in Littleton, and Homecoming Sunday at Littleton United Methodist Church. I hope you got a delicious Women in Faith breakfast sandwich yesterday, and I hope you saw the showdown at the Hoedown last weekend, and I hope you saw the float in the parade yesterday. And I hope you're sticking around for the potluck today to connect with friends old and new. And if you're early enough in line, you can have some of the okra that I brought this morning. This has been a week for Littleton to celebrate who it has been, who it is now, and what it is becoming. A broad cross-section of people call this place home. So it is fitting to bring people together, to nurture the community spirit and provide an opportunity for businesses and organizations to raise awareness and yes, raise some money off of all of us for all sorts of causes. Littleton United Methodist Church has been working for the welfare of Littleton, Colorado for well over a century. And it's Homecoming Sunday here in this church family too. And we are glad to welcome back in person and online any and all who may have been away for a while. We're always glad to see you here, and we hope that Littleton United Methodist can be your spiritual home base. Homecoming celebrations are a great time for us to be reminded of our roots and to mark time with a particular family. The years slowly pile up and the story adds new chapters, but there is always a through line. A colleague of mine talks about when his children were teenagers and they would go out with friends, and that the last words that they would hear from him on their way out the door were, "Remember who you are." Every family has a story. And ours, here at Littleton United Methodist, is part of the larger extended Christian family that began, in one sense, when Jesus found his way to Capernaum and experienced hospitality at the table of Peter and Andrew's family. When I began today welcoming everyone, no matter who or how you are, I could do that because this is a different sort of home we have here. It's not dependent on bloodlines or social status or any of the multitude of distinctions that people draw upon to delineate between one family or another in this world, between one sort of person or another, between one nation or another, between one church or another. We live in a time and a place when loud voices, and some of them unfortunately even come from parts of the church. In this time, there are loud voices that preach isolation and exclusion. They laud our kind of people, and they claim that we have no responsibility for anyone outside of our immediate family, outside our immediate race, outside our immediate creed. And it is dreadfully tempting to look out for ourselves, to look out for our own. But that is never the way of Jesus, to look out just for one corner of the world. For all of you math geeks, I know we have plenty here, we're talking about the difference between a bounded set and a centered set. The world, and too often the church, wants to put Jesus in the middle, his followers right around him, with a line drawn around that. We are inside the line. They are outside the line. They are free to agree to certain terms and conditions that will allow them to move from outside the line to inside the line anytime. Of course, God still loves everybody outside the line, but they're going to remain outsiders until they manage to fit in, to conform with everybody inside. And we may like to say that it's not us drawing those lines, heaven forbid. Everybody's welcome here. But all it takes is a little bit of self-reflection to give us pause and to challenge us to expand our sense of what welcome might mean. You can think of your own. I had one just this week. We had a memorial service here, and a gentleman came in his wheelchair and was looking for a place to sit where he wouldn't be in the way. We really don't have that spot in this room. It's interesting. Maybe that you've been troubled over the years by the emphasis on pronouns that people use to describe themselves. But what if using those pronouns is what helps them feel welcome, helps them feel seen, helps them feel a part of the family? These are just some of the ways that we create a bounded set. Sometimes we don't even know it, or it seems silly to us that someone sees a line there. Jesus always operates at the middle, of course, but he sees the world in a way where there are no lines distinguishing in from out. People move closer and they move further away from him. Some of them are church people and some of them are not. But no one is ever out of his sight or out of the range of his love, whether we find our name on the membership rolls or not. This is a centered set, centered on Jesus Christ. And Jesus is very much about building up the family, but not as an exclusive club. His extended family, his oikos, is all about adding more rooms to the house. It's all about adding more leaves to the table so more chairs can be pulled up. And I think this may be why United Methodists love potlucks so much. Apart from the Jell-O salad. It's in our spiritual DNA to dig more folding chairs out of the closet and always make room for one more, no matter who or how they are. Jesus' extended family is where belonging happens. And I trust that this is what we are striving to build here at Littleton United Methodist Church. Our distinctiveness matters, yet it does not determine our worth or our lack of it. Whatever each of us brings to the table simply makes the gathering richer. Not always more comfortable necessarily. Like, I show up at a potluck and invariably there are folks who love olives and put olives in their dish that they brought, and I just don't like olives. Or maybe you think about your Thanksgiving celebration with your family and how uncomfortable that may have been for the last few years. The table's not always a super comfortable place. But no matter who sits at the table, it becomes more reflective of the breadth of God's creativity and grace, lived concretely in the world. As Jesus people, we never have a native land in this world, in this life. We are always foreigners. We are always immigrants and strangers, no matter where we find ourselves. And this is how we look out for the welfare of wherever we are. We set a table. It's a table where there is always room for one more. And we build a home where anyone and everyone can find provision and protection. Because this is where belonging